Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talk Amongst Yourselves. Glad to be back. First official video of 2021. My name is Tanaka Mundwa, and the man behind the microphone and camera is me. Cash is behind the camera.
What's up?
How you doing, Cash?
I'm alright, how are you?
There's a little bit of rust in it. I haven't spoken apparently since the last time we did this show. I've just been quiet, so it's difficult for me to say words clearly.
Oh wow.
Cash, big one. Outside of sports. Today, it's quite traumatic what happened today. So,
Fill us in.
yeah, I'm coming from my barber. He and I did not have a good interaction. You know, you got the barber and the blade is too sharp. You're doing that thing when he's trimming you. It's been going on for months. Honestly, I couldn't say anything. Couldn't bring myself to say anything because I thought that would be the end of our relationship.
Yeah.
It's not. So what we've agreed on is I'm just going to keep going through the pain.
You're gonna keep going through
Yeah,
the
that's what we've agreed upon. Yeah.
Wait,
Long suffering.
I think you need to switch.
No, they call me long suffering. That's in my barber relationships and also in my favorite football teams. That's a good segue. I feel like that's a really good segue into talking about Liverpool.
Yeah.
No?
No?
Okay.
Yeah?
No?
Yeah?
Long suffering, barber, fit for Liverpool. I'm used to pain.
What do you mean long suffering with Liverpool though?
Yeah, Cash, you know me now as this guy who's, supports one of the biggest teams in England, winning stuff. Before that, it was 15 years of absolutely nothing, So difficult, absolutely difficult. But we're here now. So quickly, Liverpool lost 4-1 to Manchester City over the weekend. I'm not going to make all the jokes. You know the WhatsApp groups with the uncles. Where's the Liverpool fans? I'm looking for one. I'm over it. But what I will say is I disagree strongly with comments that were made after the game. So Roy Keane comes out and he says, I think Liverpool have been terrible. In fact, he went as far, what was the line? He called it quite one of the worst title defenses in the history of the Premier League. I'm paraphrasing, that's not exactly how he said it, but something to that effect. Which is difficult to take, Cash. You've just won your first title in 30 years. And then the next season, you're chasing top 4.
But that's what happens though.
I suppose. But also,
ups and downs.
You're right. But what is, okay, so just 3 things I want to say about Roy Keane's comments and a lot of people who feel the same way. Number 1, it's very difficult in this era of football, especially in the Premier League, to repeat last season's successes, right? We've seen it with Chelsea, City. You'll probably have a couple of seasons to rebuild and then go again, right? So that's absolute certainty. So, and not to say that Liverpool couldn't have done what they did last season, I just think it was always going to be harder. Because it happens that everybody just raises their game, and if you're off by just a little bit, things can go wrong. Number 2, to ignore the injury crisis at Liverpool is blasphemous. To be like, oh, the fact that these guys are missing 8 senior players for the past 19 games doesn't matter. It's crazy. In fact, I actually have the stats for you right here, Cash. I'm going to say it as I read it. The Reds have been missing at least 5 players for the last, I lied, I wasn't 8. 5 players for their last 19 matches in a row. That's an average of 5.8 players. I wonder who the 0.8 player is. Who is kind of a player. Not really, yeah. I mean, so look, it's well publicized. What's happened here is unheard of. The numbers we're seeing in terms of injuries at Liverpool are numbers that we haven't dealt with before, at least under the Klopp era. So naturally, there's going to be some issues. Secondly, or thirdly, and finally, because a lot has been said about this issue already, you can't ignore the fact that we lost, or the types of players that we lost. When Manchester City last season lost Vincent Kompany after they won the league, and Fernandinho was the preferred option at centre-back, they finished with 81 points. The season before that, they had 99, right? That's a drop-off of a lot, you know what I mean? When you lose central figures, now granted the goalkeeper's still there, attacking trident is still there, but the shape of the squad has changed so much. I mean, without Van Dijk, that high line that Liverpool can play, we drop off. With Henderson playing in the defensive positions, we have to drop off because there's no one to trigger. And I'm not getting into tactics, we all know these things. There's no one to trigger the high press, but for me it's like, to say that, oh, Liverpool have been one of the, and to ignore the facts, for me is crazy. I know Klopp has come out and said a lot, but it's fair. It's been tough. And for us to finish in top 4 this season, everything considered, even off the back of last season, I think for me would be a good step forward for Liverpool. It's a Liverpool team ravaged with injury, no fans because of COVID-19, granted everybody's dealing with that, but to still finish in the top 4 positions, second, where I think we'll finish, I think will be signs of a team that endured and came through it all. So I think what we should be saying about Liverpool's, yeah, it's been bad, sure, but should we finish top 4, second, have a bit of a run in the Champions League, maybe, semi-finals. It's definitely City. I'm a realist. It's definitely City. When we started the show, Cash, I made a lot of predictions at the beginning, right? I said things like, it's not going to work at Arsenal. I said, what the hell Arsenal doing signing Willian? I said, Arsenal. And I just, how many episodes we dropped talking about Arsenal? Where are they now? So I've made predictions on this show before. And some of those predictions, Chelsea, I said Chelsea as well. People were shocked when I said Chelsea under Frank Lampard not finishing the top 4. And look at them now. Almost in the top 4.
Frankie's gone.
Frankie's gone, exactly. I make all these predictions that sound crazy initially, but if you give it time. So I said Liverpool and City would be 1 and 2. I still believe that. But now I just believe City 1, Liverpool 2. I think Manchester United will be good. Possibly. That 4th place is looking tricky. I may have to recant. I gave it to Everton and Tottenham. But I'm probably, if I'm going to be realistic, give it to United in 3rd. And Chelsea, Cash. We're giving it to Chelsea. You know what else happened? So Tom Brady wins his 7th NFL thing. What is it called? I don't know too much about the NFL. Super Bowl, that's what it's called. Yeah. Jeez, that word left me. And we're all like, oh, great. And then the conversation where we're going to go about greatest team athlete of all time, greatest sports team, something along those lines starts, right? Firstly, I see a picture, because you go on Twitter. Twitter is quick they'll let you have like 5 minutes of like happiness and joy, and then they'll quickly remind you of who you really are. There's a picture of Tom Brady in his locker room with a Make America Great hat behind him, right? And I'm like, oh snap! I think people know that Tom Brady and Donald Trump are buddies, right? Like really close. But I'm curious, Cash. Does that, for you, change anything? Like, does the fact that he's friends with Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form move that conversation for you?
No, not really, because I think whenever we look at like such topics, let's leave the politics aside.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not part of the game. At the end of the day, I guess, but also I guess what happens off the field.
Yeah.
But I don't know actually. I'll be honest with you, I actually don't know this one. But I think I think for Tom Brady, it's just, for me, it's just, he's won 7 now, right?
Yeah.
7 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
NBA, was it Michael Jordan's like what?
6? Yeah.
So I think he's
done enough?
It's enough for him to be in those, because even, I mean, let's be honest, Michael Jordan, even off the pitch, at that time, he was not doing that much.
True.
Obviously, he had Nike deals and all of those things.
We saw the documentary. Yeah. Politically, man was quiet.
Yeah.
Granted. And you're not wrong, Cash. I think we're all kind of in that space where it's difficult to say, really. Like, I feel different ways about it every time. And we're not here to discuss politics and sport and get into all that kind of jazz. I think we just talk about what happens on the field. But here's a quick quote. And then we'll talk about what I really want to talk about in relation to Tom Brady. This is Nancy Armour, who said, Brady's ability to enter and exit the debate at his choosing to shield himself from accountability is the height of white privilege. So his defense is, oh, why does it matter who I'm friends with? So when you hear it like that, I was just reading it and I was like, oh, that's actually quite exciting. The fact that he just gets to be like, oh, we're just buddies, whatever. Like if a black athlete, LeBron James, for argument's sakes, was friends with like, I don't know, insert whoever, it's just a real bad dude. I don't think we'd be okay with that. I don't think the media response would be the same. But then, again, we're not dealing with that right now. So, Tom Brady, we're having that conversation about him being the greatest team sport athlete. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Wait, the greatest team sports athlete?
The greatest team sport man. The greatest team.
Why is it not just the greatest?
Like he's the greatest
athlete?
No, because they're trying to say in team sport, across team sport.
Yeah.
So not just him alone. Like,
oh, okay. So compared to like maybe a Tiger Woods.
Yeah, like you wouldn't compare him to like what was happening on Twitter, like Serena Williams, right?
Okay.
But you have to compare him in the context of a team. So then you would compare him to Michael Jordan, Lionel Messi, Maradona, LeBron James, more recently. Yeah, sure. So that's what the argument has been about, which I think is ridiculous. Because really, I know I have these conversations just for sport sometimes, but you can't really, you can quantify someone's ability to perform, sure, and how much said person has helped their team. But I feel like this conversation is difficult to kind of say one person outright because a lot of it is also about how well you were resourced. You know, so for example, Patrick Mahomes probably, and again, I'm not the NFL guy, so I'm not going to live and die by these words, probably the better quarterback right now. Younger, fresher, throw further, whatever matters. But doesn't have the better team. Do you get me? So in as much as like Tom Brady won, it's like also, sure, we can't ignore the fact that there was, the NFL's got so many players in one team, 100 other people on the sidelines who made that possible. Look at this. Okay, so maybe to bring it to sports that maybe I'm more familiar with and a lot of others as well. Soccer. For as good as Lionel Messi has been, you can't ignore the fact that he played in one of the greatest attacking teams in the world when it was him, Neymar and Suarez, and then had one of the best midfield trios in the world when it was Busquets, Iniesta and Xavi. You can't ignore all of this. So to say Messi is the best ever in a team sport would be only to base it according to what was at his disposal. Take away all of that stuff from Messi, currently what's happening at Barcelona, when last they win the Champions League. Do you see what I mean? But that doesn't mean Messi isn't a good player, maybe in comparison to Steven Gerrard. I'll go here because it's familiar. We always have the conversation about like how good was Gerrard really? And everybody will be like, oh, what makes someone great is like the titles they win. And that's a fair point, but you can't ignore the fact that Gerrard played in a significantly worse team than Frank Lampard or Paul Scholes or whoever else for the majority of his career. Does that mean Gerrard shouldn't be involved in the greatest teams, whatever that thing is, of all time? Gerrard shouldn't be involved in that conversation? I think that's slightly ridiculous. And we can have this conversation for so many players who were good, but maybe just didn't get their fair kick in really good teams. So it's difficult. And I really looked and tried to weigh in on that conversation, but I actually changed my mindset to say, I think the reality of the situation is it's no longer about great and whatever. I think you can really have that argument for individual sports because then you can weigh up, right? Like you got to play this, you versus what are your numbers versus this, but in a team, it just isn't, it's not as, it's the same way as the awards on Fair Cash when they only ever give Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo the awards, but they ignore the fact that this team had to be really good defensively as well to get where they got. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you concede 4 goals in the season, Messi scores 40, he wins player of the season. You, the defenders who only conceded 4 goals, get absolutely nothing. That's what I'm trying to say. In the team, I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, I get what you're saying.
Am I making sense? Yeah, you got a counter argument?
And I don't really have a counter argument against it because, yeah. Okay, I think the Steven Gerrard example that you've given is actually a very valid point, because I think even like if you look at like I mean like what is it, Michael Jordan as well.
Yeah.
You know, like we saw Scottie Pippen was a major integral part of the team. So yeah, I guess if we're gonna put them up like that, I don't really necessarily agree like with the sports team, whatever. I just think it's just an athlete. It's his ability. He's good. His personal ability.
But his personal ability is also contingent on how good the people around him are.
But maybe he's just better than the others.
He is. No. And we're not debating if Jordan is a great athlete. I'm just saying when you try to quantify it, it's easier in individual sports as opposed to where there's teams involved. Because I always argue like, okay, but when you didn't have, in Jordan's case, Scottie, or how many championships did you win then? You know? That can always be argued.
But then Real Madrid without Ronaldo, is it still the Real Madrid that we know?
Oh yeah, kinda. But no, that's my point. That's my point. You also need very good, like if you drop Ronaldo right now in Stoke City, or even in Kaizer Chiefs, just say you drop him in Kaizer Chiefs. Does that automatically make Kaizer Chiefs the best team, one of the best teams in the world?
No.
Because Ronaldo's there?
No.
If he's passing the ball just to tin cans the whole time, and I'm not saying that's what's happening at Kaizer Chiefs, I'm just saying, for assumption's sake, that's tough. You're not going to be the best player in the world when you're playing in, you know what I mean? Anyway, look, we can continue this conversation further. So, Tom Brady, congratulations to him. I'm not taking anything away. All that stuff I said about, that's up to you to decide how your feelings are, but you can't take away from what he's achieved on the pitch, on the grass. I don't know. I don't know how you talk about NFL. On the field, there we go. Thank you, Cash. This is why I need you. So that's it. That's what's been happening in a little bit of a conversation that I was having in my mind in relation to all that other stuff. Also, while we're talking American football, let's just talk soccer for a little bit. Football. Pizzo played today against Bayern Munich, right? Lost 2-0. And there were actually people who expected Pizzo to win that.
Yeah.
Who were like, Pizzo, how could you not?
No.
Really?
Nah.
How could you not, Pizzo? Like, really?
Nah. I think people are just getting too ahead of themselves.
Yeah.
Right now. I mean, it's a case of Pizzo is a good coach, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on, he's playing against
the best team in the world.
The best team
At least
in
the
the
Champions League is your measure.
You know, guys who've won the World Cup like how many times?
Yeah, you get me?
Yeah.
So people are like, Pizzo. I'm like, yeah, guys, come on, let's also be realistic. Maybe that's more of the casuals who are expecting something to happen, but it is a case of sometimes when the narrative gets bigger than the actual situation on the ground. You know, I think as a continent, maybe we need to also, you know, be very sober about where we are. And take Pizzo's 2-0 victory, or defeat rather, not necessarily as a victory. Also, how do you feel about people who are like, comparatively, Bayern Munich beat Barca 6-1 and aggregate that one time, Pizzo only lost 2-0, i.e., or therefore, Pizzo is better than whoever the Barcelona coach was at that time. How do you feel about that? Crazy, right?
People get too, like I say, they just get too ahead of themselves. Like, it's okay.
But look, 2-0 is honestly not a bad result at all. It's a competitive score, and I think you got to give him that. I also think he's one of the best. So in case you're thinking my words are saying that he's not, that's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, I think he's going to go on to do great things. And I don't know if Europe is still a door that's open for him, because maybe he's a bit late on if he wants to still pursue that. But I think he could potentially be one of those who also makes his way into Europe and does big things. So I don't want to say congratulations to Pizzo, because that goes against everything I just said. But they made it that far. And yeah, ultimately they made a bigger force, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So here's where we'll leave it. Cash, today with, F1. Yeah, imagine that. We've never spoken F1 on the show before. So what's happening in F1 at the moment is sprint races. A couple of teams have gotten to, the submission is that maybe to make the game a lot more appealing, or the races a lot more appealing to the casual fan, do away with the practice rounds on the Saturday and introduce sprint races. So you have, I think, the top 8 teams vying for, the #1 position, and that will then obviously determine where they poll on the race, which is on Sunday. Great idea. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good question. Voice in the corner. That is, well, technically, yeah. So I think it's to move, so what they'll do is move practice to Friday. Sprint races become the qualifiers, and then so qualifying now isn't competitive in the way where you can like bump into. You shouldn't really, you know what I mean? Like it should be like you just make it and we check your time. But now it would be like potential of like you can bash this person out the race, and that's one of the pitfalls potentially, because we're actually racing now. Like we're racing. We're not just like let's see who's got the fastest lap time. It's a 100-kilometer race. That's what they've proposed. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. No, Cash, not convinced? Voice in the back, no?
Fuel, car, tires.
All good points. Yeah. You should work at FIA. I agree. There's a lot of downside, but I think what can't be ignored, and maybe the conversation is about, dominance gets boring at some stage, right? Like shout out to Lewis Hamilton. But I think really what these guys are trying to say is we're tired.
Yeah.
Like you're great, bro. Like, take nothing away from you, man. But, it would be nice to be competitive. Like, I think that's across. Like, everybody would say this season is probably, of Premier League football, is probably better because there's a lot more options for the title than last season when Liverpool at this stage were 30 plus points from the next best, I think the same is true for even F1. It's a softer racing, or it's a softer kind of race now than what probably people who love the sport grew up watching. But also, man, something needs to be said about when one person just wins all the time. Like,
it gets boring.
Irrespective, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him. Everyone needs to up their level. But I mean, it's also almost impossible when you need millions to do it. So, suggestion there from FIA, that's what's being touted as the next move for F1 to increase interest in the sport and get people who are maybe not avid fans, to start watching. So what, do we take a vote? What are we saying about sprint races?
I'm for it.
For it?
Yeah.
Voice in the side? Doesn't make sense. Okay, there we go. And I think it's a great idea. So 2 beats 1 in any democratic system, unless Zimbabwe or Uganda or... Should I continue?
You can stop right
there.
there.
Stop right there. All right, so lastly, this coming weekend, I just want to make one prediction. Kamaru Usman, he's up against, whose name just left me.
Just engage.
No, man. Now you're taking me even further away from where I was going, Cash. Damn it, now we have to type it in. Oh, I said rankings, damn it. What's that man's name? Kamaru Usman, UFC 258, Gilbert Burns. There it is, Gilbert Burns. Kamaru Usman v. Gilbert Burns this coming weekend. It's the fight that I'm honestly super excited to see. The fight that we needed and the fight that we deserve. I'm not going to get into the tactics of it all. I think we'll do that next week as we kind of unpack what we saw. It's obvious, right? Wrestler v. BJJ specialist. Gilbert Burns probably hits harder. Kamaru Usman has the better range and you know, he's the bigger fighter. But the bigger narrative here is former training partners, and that's what's exciting, right? So you get the sense that these dudes know like who's better than who, right? You don't get it often where people who've trained together for that long as they have or did, fight each other in the UFC. And yeah, very excited for that fight. I think, just to make my prediction, Gilbert Burns wins that fight. And that's not, actually I lie, no, I lie. Kamaru Usman wins that fight. Yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna go with the other guy.
He's Nigerian, I remembered the lineage, we have to pay homage. He's gonna win, man.
You don't sound convinced.
Yeah, I'm not convinced because really I was going with Gilbert Burns, but now remembering that this is Africa's premier sports podcast. You know what I mean? I want to be on brand, Cash. That's what I want to do. I want to be on brand. So we'll go with Kamaru Usman, but really Gilbert Burns. I'll be making bets. So we betting, Cash?
How much are we betting?
50.
Okay, 50. I'm saying Gilbert Burns.
You're saying Gilbert Burns?
Yeah.
Winner takes all. Me and Cash got a voice in the corner?
I don't know what you just said.
Okay. Voice in the corner is not being attentive. We'll go with Kamaru Usman. Yeah? Need a bigger pot. Valentine's is coming.
Valentine's is coming.
I need some flowers, bro. It's crazy out here. All right, so that's what's happening, at least in my mind, in terms of sports. Continue in the comment section. Let me know what's up. Thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe, like, share. Cash, goodbye.
Bye.
All right.